there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction and Renovation magazine. This is what it used to look like. Went digital in 2020, and the last issue we did in print was August of 2021. But actually, this is Mr. Glenn Davis, Director of Construction. Actually, he's our guest today. So with that, you know, I normally go into my sports and everything else, but you know what? Glenn, say hello to our listeners out there on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk.
Hello, everybody. Welcome good to be here.
And Glenn's out of Gulfport, Mississippi, right?
Correct.
What's the weather like down there? I know we've been hot, we've been cold, we got a little hot. Now I think we're gonna get some rain all weekend here in the ATL. What's it doing down there on the coast?
It's actually warm again down here. We're in the 70s still, so which is somewhat a little bit warm for this time of the year, but we got hit real hard with heavy heat this summer.
Oh yeah, well listen, I live in Atlanta. I get the heat, and you know, Gulfport's a really cool place. For those of you who haven't been down there, I actually did one of my summits down in Biloxi. So you fly into Gulfport, and then it's about a half-hour ride over to Biloxi. But it's just beautiful down there. If you ever get a chance to go see the coast of Mississippi or Alabama or even in Georgia, you know, you got Destin and all that. It is just beautiful down there on the Gulf, and definitely a bucket list. And I did an event in Biloxi at the White House, and I liked it so much I actually brought my summit back a year or two later, and we did it at the Golden Nugget, I think it was, and had our casino night at the yacht. And we did the shrimp boat tour, and so it's a really cool place down there. So if you've never been there, you know, the airport's tiny. It's got about 5 gates, and really easy in and out. You know, if you fly from Atlanta, I think it was 45 minutes. We went up, we went down, and but really, really, really cool place. So with that said, it's an honor to have a previous cover person on here, and you know, actually, Glenn was the first when we did the when we actually went digital. We had Glenn's, you know, he was going to be on our June issue, I think it was May, June. And we reached out to him and said, hey, we already have your answers and everything. We're going to go to digital. Would that be okay with you? And he said, yeah. So he actually was the start of my digital transformation from print face-to-face to, you know, where I am today, you know, on the web. And so we appreciate, you know, having a cover person on here. And so, Glenn, the way it works is we're going to, you know, you'll tell your story. And then, like I said, we'll talk about lessons learned from the roller coaster, and then one positive thought or phrase. But before we start, I actually have a sponsor. After that sponsor has his message out there, we'll come back and we'll start our conversation. So hang in there and watch the little video. Hey, everybody. For all you contractors out there struggling to hire, I wanted to introduce you to a partner, dear friends of mine, the Contractor Consultants. This is a company that is putting recruiters and staffing agencies out of business. So if you're a construction business out there and you're struggling to hire and you want to grow and expand your team next year, and you're sick and tired of sifting through resumes and all the administrative burdens of hiring, well, I've got something very special for you. These guys have figured it out. They've made construction hiring faster, easier, and a lot more affordable. They're endorsed by ZipRecruiter, Indeed, and they work nationwide across 87 industries. So if you want to put your hiring to bed for a small monthly fee and learn a new way, a better way, a more effective way to hire in the industry, schedule a call and learn more about this new hiring solution. Text HIRE, that's hire, to 66866. That's hire, HIRE, to 66866. Worst case scenario, you show up on the call, you learn a few new things that you didn't already know about the hiring, and these guys wrote the book, the course, and are doing it every day. So with that said, welcome to the show, and thanks for listening. Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for being patient. So, Glenn, Director of Construction of RPM. You know, now, if I'm not mistaken, RPM is one of the largest, it is the largest Domino's franchisee. Yes. Am I correct?
Yes, it is the largest in the continental United States.
And then how many locations do you guys operate?
About 180 in 5 states.
Yeah, absolutely. And the pizza business, very, very competitive, but obviously, you're one of the big dogs there, right?
Yes.
So, with that said, the floor is yours. Tell us your story.
Well, I was born in San Jose, California, and lived there until I was about 7, and then the family moved to Nevada. Um, we ended up in Washoe Valley, Nevada, which is dead center between Reno, Nevada, and Carson City, Nevada. Currently, I have 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. Oldest and younger are boys, girls are in the middle, and I actually have 19 grandkids.
Oh my
You
God.
know, 11 of them are, married, are within the family. The rest are basically married into, so existing with a spouse here or there. So, um, went to school in there. Went to Earl Wooster Senior High School in Reno, Nevada. Graduated in 1978. And right after that, I went into the Carpenters Local 971 in Reno in their 4-year apprenticeship program. I did that about 3.5 years into it, was able to graduate, and I went into the United States Navy Seabees
Oh, nice.
and have built projects in 6 different countries around the world. I did 7 years active and 5 years reserves. In 1988, I got out of active duty, went back home to Nevada. My dad had gotten his GC license at that time and was building custom built houses for, 5,000 plus square feet for doctors and lawyers and those who could afford it. And then come in 1990, I had a construction site accident on site with a extended boom forklift, and the roll bar ended up crushing my left foot, which put me into, how do I compete in the business once I healed up, not being able to handle, real rocky foundation in the dirt type walking around or a steep roof. Going through all that battle, and then construction basically shut down on the residential side in 90, winter of 91 into 92. Nobody was building residential, and commercial was slowing way down. So packed up the family, decided to move back to Mississippi, which is where I was stationed with the Seabees, and nobody was hiring on the construction side. So while I was active duty, I actually delivered pizza for Domino's out of a store, working just Friday and Saturday nights from open to close. So I decided, well, I guess it's time to change careers, and so I went in, hired at Domino's Pizza with RPM Pizza, and started off assistant manager, became a manager, then became a supervisor. So I did operations side of the house for 5 years. And then I made a sideways move into our office. We call our resource center, doing in charge of the POS system. So in the technology department. But back then we're talking DOS-based computers. There was no Windows. There wasn't any of that. So it's all DOS-based computers doing POS. And I was in that department for 5 years, and then the position that I have now opened up. So I interviewed for that and received that promotion into the construction side of the house. So I've been doing construction side of the house for 21 years now, building. In the beginning, I did construction, facilities management, and telecom, and did that for about 12 years. And then rolled into around 2014, went 100% nothing but the construction side of the house. So handling all major construction, all re-imaging. So in 2014, Domino's rebranded to what they call Pizza Theater, which is what you see in the stores currently. And so all 180 stores had to be rebranded, and still building new stores and relocating stores into new places. So I've been doing, like I said, 21 years.
How many of the stores did you build yourself when you got the director of construction role? How many of the stores out of the 180 did you build?
So currently in the 21 years, I'm sitting at about 100 stores that I've built, with either relocated. Sometimes you relocate a store, it still keeps the same store number, so it doesn't count as a new store, but a total about 100 stores. So that I've built in all 5 states. So.
Well, first of all, we appreciate your military service. not only being a CB, and for those of you guys don't know what those guys do, they go out and they'll do the asphalt for the runway. They're the guys that get stuff done before you even start construction and stuff. So being a CB, my grandfather was a combat engineer in World War II underneath Patton, and he built all the bridges that were the Allies blew up in World War II and afterwards when they were rebuilding Europe. And I come from a military family, so we really appreciate your support. But the CBs, I have a fond memory of, because I just watched some of the old Super 8s that my grandfather had, and they go into an island, when World War II and when we were fighting the Japanese or whatever, and they would go in and do a runway so they could get the planes to run, and they figure it out,
Right,
during.
right.
So
Yeah.
that's all. I did not know about that.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, basically he was an engineer. So that was, CVs still have civil engineer corps, but then the CVs are the one that actually did all the work. And so they go into, during wartime, they go in either with the Marines when they hit the beach or land, depend. Today it's a whole lot different than back then, or right after them. And then they build it, but then they also do, wartime stuff. They have to protect what they build. So they're armed and they have combat training and everything else. So they go in and build everything. They build the entire base, runways, sea huts, hospitals, a galley, everything. They go in and build it all. So yes.
Well, that's unbelievable education. I always tell people, if they have kids and they're 18 and they don't know what they're going to do, and they don't want to, I just tell them, go into the military. You get 3 square meals a day. You're going to learn a trade. You're going to build your character. You're going to learn leadership. And, if you decide to stay in, or if you do your time and, go back to civilian life, you'll have a trade or a skill that you can apply to the business world, going back to civilian life. And I think it's the best thing that you could do, coming out of high school when you really don't know what you're going to do. Go to a 4-year school and get a piece of paper that's not worth its weight of paper that it is on these days. And listen, I'm a hypocrite saying that, because I went to the 4-year, but I got my sticks behind me. So I was an athlete. I played hockey and lacrosse.
Right.
That's why I went to University of Denver. But I got an economics degree and a political science degree, and I still use that stuff that I learned today. And college isn't for everybody. So the military is a very, very, very cool way to go. So I give you credit for going that route, and then enlisting, and doing afterwards. So we really appreciate that, and like I said, I'm fond of anybody that's gone the military route. So let's talk about over the 21 years, you've been building stores. They're not cookie cutter. Every one of them's different, but they still have the basic same format depending on what location they're in. And March of 2020 comes up, cranes all over the place, low unemployment, everything's cranking, and then everything gets shut down. And if you were in the fast food side of things, those places were busy, because everybody really didn't know what was going on. Some people, they said, the news said, oh, it's going to be could be 3 weeks, could be a couple weeks, and here we are 3.5 years, and we're still talking about it. I mean, we're out of the tunnel, but we're still some bumps in the road. And talk about how RPM weathered the storm, and got to maintain their clients and construction projects, etc. How that whole process went.
So the stores, in the very beginning, they slowed down, and Domino's Corporation figured out how to do contactless delivery, how to do different things so that the operations side of the house could then meet all the mandates and all the stuff, and then be able to still deliver pizza, and what they could do to have people come in. Lobbies were closed. Currently we have about 120 stores have pickup windows. So we were already there when everybody else tried to figure out how to put in a pickup window. We already had them. So that was a big benefit for the way our founder started building stores back in the 80s, of putting in pickup windows. On the construction side, the biggest thing that hit, and it really didn't start hitting until the end of 20 and 21, well, as everything was progressing, was lead times on equipment. We got into beginning of 22, and it was 9 months to get a rooftop AC unit. Every store has a walk-in cooler, 23 weeks, a region cooler, 37 weeks. Ovens were 16 weeks. So, and then if you needed, you're building a new building and you got to have a meter. Meter bases are 9 to 12 months. 9 to 12 months. So you're trying to. It got to the place where I had to schedule things and order things quick, like with walk-in coolers, 23 weeks. So I could already have a building permit, but I had to schedule the start of the construction to line up when the walk-in cooler was going to be there, because it goes in during construction. And then with electrical panels, so it was not only the meter base, but even the disconnect and all the breaker panels. You could buy the breaker box. You could buy the box that goes in the wall off. They had it in the supply house, but it would take 9 months to get the breakers and the guts in tied and the cover. So last year, in May of last year, I ordered 5 stores worth of meter bases, disconnects, and all the breaker panels, and with everything in them. It took till October to get everything but the meter bases, and I didn't get the meter bases until February this year.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that problem is slowed down a little bit, but it's still not fixed. RTUs, rooftop AC units, went from 9 months. We're currently at 4 months now. So it's still long. It's cut itself in half. And a lot of it has to do with everything you use in construction is made out of metal. Metal went up 237% in that range. And, and so it was hard to get things. And so that was the biggest thing, was manufacturing delays, and then supply chain. Freight, average freight right now is 9%. It could go up still to maybe 12 is what we're anticipating. Before all this, we were at 6% average on freight costs. And so having to adjust for all that budget wise and everything else has been crazy.
Yeah, the first thing I did when the roller coaster started, went out and I redid my deck, and I went out and I got the 2x10s, 2x8s, 2x4s, and then all of a sudden everything just shot up. And if I would have waited on that project, maybe 5-6 months, everything would have been double or triple. It was just amazing. Yes. And we had our house up on the market, and our basement wasn't finished. I had one room that my office was finished, but it was all stubbed out. And we decided to take to finish the basement. We took the house off the market. We were going to do, my wife's a residential contractor, so we were going to do the basement ourselves. And just trying to find little gang boxes, that are 75 cents. They were, $1.50 at the Lowe's or the Home Depot. Trying to find primer for paint. And she had a nice crew, but we had to wait for products. And I did, I went to some of my vendors and they helped me out with the project, but it was very, very frustrating that the products just weren't, just even like the electrical wire, 14-2 or 12-2, whatever you were doing. Those rolls used to be, $60. They were $120, and you couldn't even find them.
Right. They actually ran out of FRP adhesive twice. It got to the point where when it finally got back in stock, I bought a pallet full of 3-gallon buckets so that when it happens again and I'm in the middle of a construction project, I've got it, because you have to plan for that, because otherwise, the job sits down for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it takes. And it's not only that, even today, some paint colors are hard to get. It might take a month to get some color that's not a standard because it hasn't been made and they can't get it. So we still running into that problem.
Yeah, my wife, she's got contracts with the 2 major, paint manufacturers that are, around this area. And we went to the one where we were going to get it, and he's like, "Well, we don't have any primer." I'm like, "You're a paint store. How can you not have primer?" So we went
Exactly.
to the other one. Same thing. We don't have any primer. So I called a couple of the, Home Depot, Lowe's, and I finally found some. I went up there and I bought like, I don't know how many buck gallons I needed for, we probably added another 2,300 square feet to the trophy house. And, but I'm like, you're a paint store. How can you not have
How
paint
can you not have
primer?
it? Right.
You know, but I had to call around and I told my wife, I'm like, I found some primer. The painters are coming tomorrow, man. I'm going up there right now and I'm going to buy the buckets. And I got there and I got like the last, few buckets that were on there. And but like I said, it was just outrageous how
Mm.
quickly things went up. And you don't think, listen, those little boxes that, the little electrical boxes, little plastic gigs, they're, like I said, they're 50, 75 cents, but building an old house, you're talking about a lot of them. But when the
Right.
price doubles, it's all just aligning them on the budget, and it just little by little,
It
there's
goes
so
up.
yeah, it all adds up. And um, but I'm really glad though that when I saw what wood went up, no, it's come down.
It has.
Yeah. So like right now, I'm the HOA's on my back. We bought a piece of land in 2020. I've been sitting on it, and they sent me a letter this week, and they're like, "Hey, we need to know when you're going to break ground. You're one of the last ones that's a holdout. It's about a 50 lot subdivision, and we're going to build it ourselves." And uh, I would like to sit on it because right now interest rates are 9%. But when you started in like the early 90s, interest rates were 18%.
Mhm.
Way back when. So people don't realize that, and still building was going on. People were buying homes at those rates, and but it's I can't fathom. She's like, "Oh, if we would have built the house 2 years ago, we would have been about 2.3." And I said, "Baby, it's all relative. 9% back in the mid 80s, early 90s, it was 18%, but still people were doing stuff.
Right.
You just have to build it into your whole scheme of things, and hopefully you'll be able to shave a few percentage points off. But at least we know that we have a good crew, and things. It'll be fun building that house. And uh, and you know what the funny is? We bought the land right when they were building the subdivision. And so my wife went in all the homes. So I told her, I said, listen, all the neighbors up there, they're all going to go into the house and they're going to look and see, because she's an interior designer too. I said, they're all going to go in there and start looking at your stuff and like, why didn't she do that? Or why did she do this? Because you went into all their homes. So
Right.
just telling you, your reputation's on the line. You're going to have to do a kick butt,
Oh yeah.
kick butt job on this because some of the homes are just they're monsters up there. Listen, it's just me and her, and I got some dogs. We're 3 bedrooms, a basement, 3-car garage. Just a mellow little house, Southern Ranch, and got a dock permit, and we have our boat there and stuff. But I just told her, I said, look, the heat's on because the minute we start breaking ground, those people when we're not there, they're gonna be walking through the house and they're
Oh
gonna be
yeah.
looking. And your reputation is, you do a really good job. Or I told her the other night, I go, you don't even advertise. You get all your businesses off referral. And she's like, yeah. And I said, well, when we start building the house, they're all going to go in there. So get prepared.
That's
Your
good.
competition, the competition is looking. Um,
Yep.
so as we came out of it, even though with the labor and so forth, your corporate stores or the franchisees, et cetera, how did they handle it? As far as
Well, a lot of them still were building. So right now the construction side doesn't seem to slow down, but residential has. But the commercial side really hasn't slowed down a whole lot. So people are still building, and how they're adjusting to it. I know that we've slowed down a little bit, and the biggest problem we're having right now is finding real estate because everybody thought that with COVID all of a sudden rent was going to get real cheap. Well, that didn't happen.
yeah,
So rent when you're trying to lease a space, rent's gone up.
mm,
So trying to deal with that and going through it, my construction costs went way up, and I've been working diligently with doing cost comparisons and different things, and looking at can I design a smaller footprint store and try to reduce costs, and then also looking at equipment and everything else and saying what can I change in order to help reduce costs. So for the last year, I've been working a lot on that, doing comparisons from what I'm doing now to other vendors to see whether or not what I'm doing is actually, can I save money somewhere else? And I've been able to save with different things and changing a few things and to get construction costs down, because that's really been the big thing. We're still up. We're still spending more than we did, before all this, and it's creeped up, but it's being real slow going back down.
When the roller coaster started, a lot of the restaurants had to close, and they were doing outside delivery. Obviously, fast food was if you had a drive-through, but if you were a restaurant didn't have that drive-through, you were probably very disappointed. Did sales go up because people weren't able to go out, or was it kind of constant just the way it was like year after year?
In the beginning, it slowed down, but as soon as everything got set with how to handle all of this, then sales went up. Yes, it went up across the board. So, and I think all QSRs and anybody that could be open and follow the guideline, because you had to close your lobby, and then for a while there, after a while, you could open them back up, but if you had a drinking fountain, nobody was allowed to use it. And so there were a lot of different rules. I mean, as soon as the lobbies opened back up, I had to design and create sneeze shields to go on a sales counter in every store. And, and so there was a lot of them going up, but, you try to do something so it looks neat, clean, and organized. And so I created something and had them built, but Lexan, it wasn't cheap, and and all of a sudden so at that time frame, everybody was doing the same thing. So
everybody was doing those.
If customers walked in the door, you had to have a guard. So everybody was doing it, which just raised the price. But I was lucky and have a sign company that we use for all our signage that's local, and I got with them and said, hey, look, let's design this. This is what I want. We worked it out. We did a couple different variations, and then they were handed out, and for our stores in the Midwest, they were shipped out and made, and everybody had to put them up, and then once it's over with, I mean, I designed them so you could take them apart and store them, but in reality, they just get thrown away, and then you saw some QSRs figured out how to put a shield up on the drive-through, on the pickup window, drive-through window, to make it smaller. So we had to do that on all stores. And how do you put it up so you don't screw it in, but you can put it up so it holds? And so there was a lot of going back and forth and trying to figure all that out. And so that was high priority, and everything else kind of stopped while you figured this out, got it made, got it shipped out into all the stores so that they could open their, their doors and then keep the customers and the team members and running the store all safe. So
you wonder if the sneeze guards even worked.
I guess
that's a whole other debate.
Yeah, it's a whole other debate. It's just like mask. It's a whole other debate. So you can talk about it forever.
Yeah, so, it really depended on what state you're in. Like here, like we're in Georgia. So we kind of stayed open. I mean, I had 3 projects that were right. I watched this old retirement home that was built. They were building a new fire station, and there was another project for the city that was going on. But anyway, I watched them all. They didn't shut down. I mean, if you were in construction, you got on the plane, you put your mask on, you went, you did your gig. And it just didn't slow down. It depended on what state you were in. If you were up in maybe up north where the regulations were more tighter, if you had let's say if you had to go in and do a bathroom, you might not have been able to do it because you were in close quarters. But if you were on like an outdoor federal highway project where you were open, you probably were able to get it done. So it really depended on what part of the country we were in but it didn't matter with listen, the product, if it wasn't there was nothing you could do. It didn't matter what state you were in. It was just, that was the reality of it. But the biggest thing was where you were located, and was going to dictate the timing of your store either getting renovated, finished, or whatever else you had to do to keep your stores open. What's a typical lead time for one of your facilities to get built? If you were like on a regular template.
So from the time I permit to the time I open, it runs about 4 months. With during the last month, half of that 2 weeks that we give to operations so that they can, make sure they're staffed and get the store set up and training and different things like that. So it's usually about 3 months worth of construction, and then you got to install equipment, got to get your final inspections, punch list, and then turn it over to operations with a health inspection. And then we give it to them for 2 weeks, and then they open up. So typically about 4 months, if everything goes smoothly. If you get a hiccup here or there, then, you might be a week or two later, depending on, usually it's unforeseen conditions in an existing space. When you open up a wall that's there, sometimes you don't know what you're going to find, or you open up the slab and you don't know what you're going to find under there. So that you got to deal with.
When things did it normal during the, from March 2020 till today, was it 6 months or 7 months to build a store, or?
Well, the biggest change, the store, building the store still stayed about 4, might go to 4.5 months. The biggest thing that changed was on the building department and on the plan side. So typically, several years ago, you could get permit within 7 to 10 days, and then it went to 30. And during that time, it could be 90 days before you got a permit. So a lot of it, because the different municipalities, they basically shut down and they were virtual. So I did a lot more virtual phone calls with building departments and different things to try to get things to move along. But, and then different places, health departments are working from home, and, they're doing review, but they're so swamped with new businesses trying to open up that they just didn't have the manpower, to do plan reviews and get everything going. So the municipalities and stuff in the beginning struggled more than we did on the construction side. The thing you had to worry about was, you get a quote from a sub, the GC would get a quote from the sub, and he said, that number is good for 2 weeks, where before it'd be 3 months or 30 days. It's 2 weeks that you got to sign it so that they can go order everything during that 2 weeks and get it in, because you couldn't wait.
Yeah, because it was going up.
Because it was going up, so that you couldn't guarantee prices. So trying to keep that moving along. I actually only had one project closed down. This Mississippi was open. Louisiana was open. But I had one project where we ended up shutting down for 2 weeks because the local city decided to say, hey, we're shutting down construction projects.
Yeah, we're taking hiatus for
we're taking So I only had one. I had 3 or 4 going at the time. I only had one. It closed down for a couple of weeks, and then we were back up and running.
Yeah, our local Domino's, it was an older store, and they whoever the owner was, they knocked it down and they rebuilt a new one, really nice. And Domino's, I think, is they've come out with a nice line of diverse products that they just don't do pizza these days. You've got a bunch of new items that I've seen on the tube, and you get to go through any of those taste tests or yourself, even from the construction side? Do they? I mean.
Our RC, our office, the RC Resource Center, a lot of times if there's a new product coming out, like the latest one was tots, loaded tots.
Yeah, and loaded tots.
So they would.
And they look good, by the way. I haven't had them yet,
but you haven't had them yet. They're actually real good. But the RC would, the marketing department say, hey, we're going to do, it's a new item we're going to buy, and we'll have them in the RC. So anybody that's working there during lunchtime, we're going to bring in several orders. And so we usually get to kind of taste them in the beginning. It's usually during the, before it rolls out nationally. It might roll out, usually things roll out locally, in the store, but there's no national promotion yet. And during that time frame in the beginning, we get to taste them. So, in that way. And then, I've been working with a company. I've been with RPM Pizza 31 years. And, I still have pizza, or something that we sell at least once a week, and if I've got grandkids or something over, or we're up with some friends or something, a lot of times, hey, let's order pizza. So I still eat it, as if, you would think that you would get tired of it working there for that long, and especially working 5 years in operations. But I always tell people, you can eat pizza every day for a year and never eat the same pizza twice. So there's so many different toppings and so many different ways to make it, that how are you going to get tired of? You get tired of one thing, just change it up. So
do any of the new items that they come out with, does it ever affect the construction process? Or they all have to get refrigerated, but do you get, hey, you might want to think about that. Has that come up as well?
Well, it did back, I don't know how many years ago now, but it affected with what I was doing when Domino's added the sandwiches and also the pasta. I had to reorganize or order a new sandwich make line to handle sandwiches. Um, had to, in some cases, in order to fit it, I had to change the size of the current dough table. So I had to install a bunch of new dough tables. So there was, when they do a major rollout where you're creating a product that requires additional refrigeration or something, then yeah, you do have to modify, or you might have to put in some sort of new table or some new shelf system or something. But Domino's gets real good at with most stuff they roll out, like tots. They added one item, the tots, which went in the walk-in cooler. So there wasn't really, you didn't have to do anything. You had one new item. It still worked down the production line, still went through the oven the same, and everything else. So Domino's does a real good job at trying to make sure minimizing how much changes are going to be made on the operational side. So
You listen. I'm going to ask you two questions. What was one of your favorite projects that you did when you were a CB? And then what was one of your favorite Domino's locations that you built?
So as a CB, I was stationed in Cuba for 9 months, and I had to build a fleet recreation and laundromat facility. So when the fleet came in, the ships would come in. It gave them a place to where they could wash their laundry, and then also a recreational place where we have pool tables and ping pong and pinball machines, and also it was set up with a nice counter with an area where they could have a nice sound system and do a party or something. So that one there was interesting because in Cuba they make all their own water. So we had to store the water from all the hand sinks, had to go into a tank and then be pumped into a water tower, so that, and then it was gray water, so it was used to flush the toilet. So you didn't waste all that water because again they're making all their own water there. So that was a little bit interesting there, with doing that type of stuff, trying to thinking on that side of it. Plus you're on an island, and so you have your own concrete plant. So you used to have to send two people when I had to pour concrete to break bags of cement. They go there that way when you're done. I even did it one time. You're completely covered gray with cement all over your whole body. You got a mask on and you got goggles on. And they use, what is your aggregate there? Your aggregate is coral, crushed up coral. That's your rocks and your gravel and your sand. It's all, and so concrete acts differently. I used to, they had to add the water on the job site. You couldn't add it at the plant because if they did, by the time they got to the job site,
it'd be hard.
It'd be hard. And you'd have to it would cure. So you had to do it because the coral sucked all the water out of it. So it took, half time more water just to get it to where you could do it.
So what base was that at in Cuba? That wasn't
Guantanamo.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It is. Yeah, that's the only base, the only U.S. base there, the Guantanamo Bay. So, and it was interesting working there. You're in a country where you can't, to go in town is within the base. You're confined to the base. You don't go anywhere. Only being 90 miles off the coast of Florida, you could catch a ride, a hop, and go to Florida if you were on vacation time to time or something. So it wasn't too hard to go back to the States if you needed to do something. But there's also other countries around there. You can go to other countries and visit them too. So it was kind of all right there. But scuba diving there was awesome. The water is crystal clear. Visibility is forever, it seems like. But so that was nice there. And then, I've done a lot of projects, and the one that's on my background is store 5901. So the very first RPM Pizza store was this store, and it's right next door to the new one. The new one was a 30 by 90 foot automotive place, and I had to turn it into a 30 by 60. So I had to take part of it down. And so this is an old metal building, and then turned it into what you see, to where it's all nice and brick. The front end being at that angle with that was existing, and just modifying all that because it's the show, it's a showpiece. It's with the way it is. And then on the inside, we have a kind of our RPM historical plaque which showed the original store, and then you know, the founder and the person that Frank Meeks used to work for was working here, because this was a Domino Pizza was the only Domino's pizza store in Louisiana, Mississippi at the time in 1981, and so that was number one. It was existing. Frank Meeks was a supervisor, and then he later on franchised in Washington, D.C. and owned all the stores that delivered to the White House and the Pentagon and all that kind of stuff. So that one was interesting just because of it being, you know, a store. It just got moved a few years ago. It's been there since 1980, you know, since in the 70s, and then it hasn't changed. It's been remodeled a million times as different brands, brand imaging changes, and then relocating. I mean, it's right next door. So when they moved, all they did was carry it out one door, walk 50 feet, and into the new store. So, so that project was a pretty good highlight of doing the construction. So,
yeah. How many locations do you think you'll do over the next year or so? You know, as we move in, you know, we're closing out this year. Q4 is almost over. The holidays are coming down the pike, and then we're going into the new year.
I have one under construction that'll open up before Christmas. That's a new store. And then next year I have one new store slated currently, and then I have 4 relocations. So for me, that's 5 builds. For me, a relocation is the same thing.
No, it's a build. Yeah, it's a project.
It still takes exactly the same amount of money and exactly the same equipment to relocate a store that it does to build a new one. So, but that's what I have slated. And then there's going to be, I've got like 4 major remodels to do up in the Midwest. So,
if as we finish out the year and we go into Q4 and finish up and the new year starts, are you bullish? Are you bearish on what's going on? You know, just in general, you know, in the restaurant sector, because it really depends on what type of, you know, restaurateur you are. I just wanted to get your thoughts on there as well.
I think things are going to start to get better in 2024. I think construction material costs should start dropping, and all the different reports and stuff I've seen, you know, says it should start dropping. And so you've got to, you know, try to plan for that. But real estate's hard to figure out, and you know, and everything with us right now, we're not really building any. We don't build any single unit freestanding buildings because it's just not economical. It hasn't been that way for 10, 15 years now. The company does do some duplexes and triplexes, and the development's handled through our real estate, and then I do the build out of the Domino space. So we're looking at a couple of those, but those are ground ups, and then you know, you got to get the real estate. Then, you know, that basically comes down to the numbers have got to work. The construction costs are currently up, real estate is up, so you know, your everything, when you add it all together, the store still has to make money. So trying to put it all together, and it's getting harder to do that now with the real estate side and then also the construction. So my job is try to get those construction costs down, which since 4 stores ago, the store I'm on now will be about $65,000 less than the last 4, and then the one that I have one that'll start construction in March of next year, and I figured out how to save another, you know, $40,000 on that one, and I'm still working towards different things. And Domino's Corporate is doing the same thing. I just got back from a 2-day trip up to Ann Arbor, Michigan, talking about exactly the same thing with Domino's Corporate and with their development team, and trying to figure out how can we build smaller, what can we do with equipment. You know, like a cut table is 4 foot by 6 foot or whatever size. Well, can I make it smaller? You know, ovens you can't always go smaller, you can go less, and they're working on trying to get the bake times down. So it's like
you want it to be quicker, you know?
Right, you want it to be quicker. So they're working. There is an oven that is a little bit quicker that we're going to be testing at the next store. that'll help. So it's like, how can you build smaller, but you still have to fit all your equipment. You still have to have all your ADA pathways, that meet ADA standards throughout the entire store. And you still got to have everything. Well, how do you get that into a smaller footprint and still be able to do it? But then on the real estate side, like I could build into a 1,200 square foot space all the time, but a landlord doesn't want to lease you 1,200 square feet, because if we ever leave, they can't flip it real easy. Right. So the smallest they'll go is 1,500 square feet. So how do I put a 1,200 square foot store into 1,500 square feet? What do I do with the other 300 square feet to try to reduce costs? So we figured out how to do that, and we're going to try it at the next store that'll open up in Madisonville, Louisiana. But it starts construction in March. The landlord's building a building right now. So, and so that's been the challenge, is trying to do that, and then also comparing the vendor you're using now with another vendor for lighting and signage and construction equipment, and say, can I save any more money? What can I do? And I had a conversation this morning with a vendor that sells different products that, hey, so sent them information, say, how can we, what's your pricing? Let me compare it to what I'm paying, and would it make sense to make a change? So that's going on, and I've been doing a lot of that all year.
Oh yeah. Hey, meet me halfway. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, right.
Come on. Right. We all want to stay busy. Meet me halfway.
Right.
We can both absorb it. It's a win-win for both of us.
Right.
So if you're, listen, if you're a restaurateur out there and if you don't have a Domino's gig in your portfolio, if someone wanted to reach out to you, how would they reach out to you and make contact?
So Domino's, being a franchisee, we can build within, usually our territories is typically where things happen. If we want to go into a new territory, approvals go through Domino's corporate, and they have to approve you to be able to go into a new territory. Because everybody tries, somebody wants to come in and build within our territory, Domino's corporate always asks the franchisee first, and then so it's a big thing going back and forth. But Domino's is actually the only QSR where you can't walk in the door, lay down so much money, and buy a franchise. In Domino's, you have to be a successful manager of a store for a year to earn the right to franchise. We're the only QSR that does that.
Which I think is the way that you do it, because you already have the operations, and you know how the store is going to be run and maintained, how things are made. You probably have tasted all the food, so I think that's a major plus.
Right, it is.
I get these franchisees every day. They email me. They find me on LinkedIn. Oh, you be a good job, and I just say, listen, I'll keep your info on file, and if I ever became a franchisee, I would probably, I don't know what I would do, but I get them all the time, and they don't understand that not everybody's built to run a Domino's or to do a McDonald's or a Burger King or a hardware. Right. It's you just can't go and throw. You got to learn, and I always say, as a coach, I always just tell everybody, any of the players, look, you guys should play every position that you can, because whether it's in rec and then you get into high school, and by the time you get to college, you just show up and then you're running back, and then the coach says, you know what, you're going to be the linebacker. But coach, I'm a running back. No, you're a linebacker. So learning everything I think that's a very smart move on Domino's part, to make sure that you understand the operations part before. And I've seen it on the commercials where they said, hey, I started as a driver, became a manager, and now I've got 3 stores, and it's a really good success story. Absolutely,
it is. Yeah.
If there was one positive thought or phrase that you'd want to leave with our listeners on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk as we finish out the year and roll into 2024, what would it be?
So I like to use famous quotes. So Frank Lloyd Wright famous quote is, you can use an eraser on the draft table or a sledgehammer on the construction site. So with that, it's like, okay, a lot of people, you're trying to cut costs. So, okay, if I'm paying $20,000 for plans, how can I spend $10,000 for plans? The problem is that when you do that, you're going to be using a sledgehammer on site to correct something that you don't want because it wasn't on the plans, but you tried to save money. So save money where you can, but with the plans, you got to make sure they're detailed and everything else. Because if you do have to use a sledgehammer, you're talking change orders. Anytime you do a change order, the price goes up, with overhead and profit and insurance and everything else. So that is probably the most famous quote that I like the most, and I have others too. So
I thoroughly like it, and I'm going to bridge that, I'm a digital guy these days, so I've been working on my digital agency, which is going to launch here in a couple of weeks, taking digital classes all for the last year. Anyway, I have to nurture my business page every night, and I always put quotes up there. I put some videos up there, but the other night I put one up that said, every boss was a worker before, and just like Domino's,
right.
and I have a little picture of a guy, washing a car or something like that. But it really hit home. And, I kind of, it's like when I started my business back in 2001, I'd been a publisher. I had been an ad sales guy. I moved my way up, and then Nielsen bought us, and then I went out on my own. But I knew how I wanted to run my publishing firm. But if I didn't do any of those previous, 6 to 8 years, whatever it was, there's no way I could have done it. Or
Right.
I don't think I'd be standing here today, because 9 out of 10 businesses don't make it when they start out, as an entrepreneur, because they think they know it, but having that experience behind it, it's priceless in my opinion. Listen, if anybody wants to get in touch with me, I'm at davidc@ccr-mag.com. Glenn and I have known each other. He's come to my events, and listen, he's been on the cover of the magazine, and but once again, he was telling me, hey, you should have these types of people on your show and this and that. And I said, hey, why don't you be on the show? And so he got, approval, and that's how he made it on here. So if you ever want to be a guest on here, reach out to me. But as far as getting in the magazine, very tough, but we have so many social media channels, press releases, new products, announcements, anniversaries. It could be anything. Don't judge that book by its cover. Let us do it. Okay, because we will post that stuff. We get a couple million people a month that hit the website, and we'll post it. We'll send the URL. We share it. It's good for our SEO, search engine optimization. Google will find you, and so send it to me. And I always say it's like playing the lottery. If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win. If you don't send me something, I can't look at it. So and with that, I'm gonna caveat and hey, hit that button. Hit the subscribe button there too. We want to make sure this episode gets out so everybody can hear, Mr. Glenn's story. Coming from a TV to working in a Domino's, and now here he's built over 100 locations. In all these years. So hit that button, and we really appreciate it. Number two, if you're out on a construction site, we'll make sure that you're safe. Okay, we want you to get home at night, see your kids, your wife, your dogs, whatever, and catch some Z's, and then be able to go back and do it again. Safety is number one in my book. And number three, even though it's getting to be winter, like Glenn said, it's still warm down there in Mississippi. We want you to stay hydrated. So make sure you drink lots of liquid when you're there on the construction site. Don't get dehydrated. Dehydration gives you headaches. You make mistakes. That's how you get hurt. So number one, be safe on the site. Number two, stay hydrated or liquefied, and you'll just enjoy yourself so much better. So Glenn, pleasure having you on as a guest. I'm honored to have you on here. And listen, you graduated high school in 78. I graduated in 81. So we're both about 26 or 24 years old, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
But we're giving our ages away. But, and once again, thank you for your service. That's just, hats off to you, So with that said, Glenn, say goodbye from Gulfport, Mississippi.
Goodbye from Gulfport, Mississippi.
And I'm going to sign off from Sugar Hill, just below the Buford Dam, about 25 miles north of downtown Atlanta. And everybody, listen, you got Thanksgiving coming up in a couple weeks, and then you got Hanukkah, Christmas, New Year's, and boom, this year's over. And it's been a wild ride. But 2024, look, you can't. There's a lot of stuff you can't control. So you just got to do your gig, and whatever happens, happens. But 2024, I'm very positive about it. I just talked to a lot of my clients. They're all very, very busy, and construction keeps going right along. And whatever happens, you got to roll with the punches. But we're all going to make it, okay? It might get a little worse before it gets better, but it's going to get better. I always look at the glass half full or empty. You know what? I'm just glad I have a glass to look at, So, stay positive, have a smile, get rid of all that negativity. It's not going to help you. You can't worry about it. Be a warrior, not a warrior. And you'll get, and your products are going to show up eventually, on the site, and they're going to get there, and you're going to get the job done. So with that said, Glenn, I look forward to seeing you. I'm not sure what I'm doing with my events. If I'm going to bring it back totally in person, I'm probably doing another hybrid gig. I've got another a big announcement that I'm going to make here. I don't know if I'll do it in this year. I might do it in the last issue of the year, but I'm sure you're going to like it. And but I'm honored to have you on the show, and have a great rest of the week, what's left of it. And everybody out there in commercial construction coffee talk, we will see you next time on another episode. Glenn, pleasure. All right. Thank you so
My
much, sir.
pleasure too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.